y'all. Welcome to Beyond the Field, the official podcast of the Drum Major Leadership Academy. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys today about your different experiences in the marching arts and auditions and the good stories and the bad stories, and just to hear what you've learned and kind of grow together as drum majors. My name is Kelley Powell. I was drum major of the Carolina Band at the University of South Carolina for the past 2 years. And this fall, I'll be beginning a position as director of bands at West Oak High School in Westminster, South Carolina. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about your background in the marching arts and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sarah Gallardo. I currently attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I'm in the marching band playing trumpet. My background in high school is I marched for 2 years, drum major for 2 years, and then I've been with Carolina Gold Drum and Bugle Corps as drum major since 2018. All right, and on to you, Dallan.
My name is Dallan Heard. I'm a drum major with the Blue Knights. I was a drum major for Seattle Cascades in 2019, and I'm a music ed major at Troy University in Troy, Alabama. Last but not least, Mr. Beau.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Beau Bujol. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm currently actually a band director. I'm graduated. I'm a band director out in San Antonio, Texas at John Paul Stevens High School. Before my time at Stevens High School, I served as drum major for the Louisiana State University Golden Band from Tigerland, where I had a ton of experience working with leaders, not just within the LSU Tiger Band, but all across the states of Louisiana and Texas. So I'm super excited to talk about audition stuff with everyone.
Yeah, Beau's our resident old guy, actually.
My silver cane's in my car. I forgot to bring it in for today.
When do I get my cane? Is that a thing that happens?
After year one.
I'm surprised you didn't get a virtual cane then, after your first year.
I'm old. I'm not good with the technology.
Yeah. So, hopping into the first topic. Kelley, if you want to take it away.
Actually, I was going to ask Beau, since Beau is our resident old person, as we just established here. Beau has experience of being on the other side of the leadership selection process that not all of us have been on yet. So, Beau, do you want to talk about what you're looking for when you've got maybe not even just necessarily drum majors auditioning, but when you're selecting student leadership? What are some qualities that you're looking for in those students kind of year round, even before the auditions get there?
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, because at our school, we're actually starting our leadership processes and auditions now, but I'm a firm believer that, and I tell my kids this, 50% of your leadership audition for any organization you're a part of starts the second you walk into the door. How you hold yourself, how you interact with others, how you interact with directors, all of that stuff is taken into account. But as far as specific leadership qualities, some things I really look for is integrity. I'm a big believer in integrity because that encompasses many, many facets of leadership. The biggest, which is this, is are you doing stuff or are you doing things to help other people even when other directors aren't asking? Are you going out of your way to help others when other people are not watching you? Integrity goes a very, very long way with everything. Another thing I like to believe is preparedness and hardworkingness, if that's a real word. Hardworkingness, again, going back to integrity. Are you working hard even without a prompt from a director? Are you doing things to help other people, again, without prompt from a director? Several other things, and I could talk for hours about qualities, but being prepared for any type of situation. But I guess the biggest thing, the highlight of what I think of leadership, to me at least, is being a servant leader. What can you do, or are you inspired to be a leader, not for yourself, but to help others? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want for our leaders, is to help the ones around them, build them up, build the program up, as opposed to being a leader just for the title, or just for a whistle or a pair of gloves.
That's awesome. I love that integrity was the first thing you mentioned, because it totally just reminded me of a story that my band director was telling us, some folks on my leadership team at my school earlier. So he didn't do this activity necessarily with our leadership, but when he was working at high schools, he would, before the first day with the leadership team, he would set up a camera in the room And then he would kind of mess up the room a little bit. Like he would put trash on the floor and put like the chairs out of whack and just mess up the room a little bit. Just not crazy, but enough that people who are looking for it will notice things are out of place. And then as the students were coming in for their first leadership meeting, you would have the camera going, so you would see which students actually like went and picked up the chairs and helped get the room organized and picked up the trash and didn't wait for someone else to tell them to do all those things. And so that would happen, and then about halfway through that leadership meeting from the first day, he would say, hey, you know, we've been talking about all these things. Let's look at this video and let's see what actually happened to start this leadership. And I was like, that is so good. I'm totally going to use that, because it's so much about taking initiative too, and not waiting to be like asked to do something. And I think that's a hurdle that a lot of new drum majors encounter, is that you have to be able to predict what's going to happen and think through all the different things that need to happen to make rehearsal happen or to make competition day happen. And that's a tough skill to learn without just failing a couple times and realizing, oh, I didn't think about this thing I need to think about, because there are definitely like drum major guides out there, but there's not one thing that can encompass every single aspect of every single drum major position, because it's always different for different schools and different bands. So I love that activity, and that's something I'm really excited to steal, because it's all about what you're doing when no one's watching or you think you're not being evaluated. That's really what integrity is.
Yeah, and funny thing, my band director always used to tell me this. He was like, being a drum major is just a title. It literally means nothing. And I'd be like, but it means everything. What are you talking about? And then like I just kind of started learning that like being a drum major isn't a title, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that you get from auditioning and then receiving. It's something that you already are going in to being a drum major, you know? It's like you live, like drum major is not something that you just like decide to do one day. It's something, it's who you are. I wake up in the morning, I go into the band room, I see that piece of trash on the floor, I pick it up, and then I throw it away. And then Kelley Powell, band director, sees it on her camera that she has laid, and then I get a treat or something after practice. So yeah.
And as a director, you know, I can tell you all those things. We can see it. You know, everyone, like kids especially, is like, directors can't see me doing this stuff. Oh yeah, we can. we take into everything into account. I actually have a funny story back at my days at LSU. That's kind of where I heard the phrase 50% of your audition as soon as you walk in the door. Maybe y'all can talk about your differences between, you know, the college process, the high school process, the drum corps process, because I don't really even know the drum corps process that well. I was in some auditions, but every audition process is different, and everyone looks for different things. Even though leadership as an art, because it is an art, encompasses a bunch of different activities, it can be evaluated, and different positions can be, you know, observed and selected based off of different things. So kind of going into it, who wants to kind of discuss, you know, some of the things that they look out for in auditions and what some audition experiences y'all might have had going into it? Let's have Sarah go ahead and give us a tale or two.
I'll start off with high school. So typically it's split into an interview and a conducting portion. So going into specifically the interview, I would say like definitely make sure you come in like prepared, like knowing what you're about essentially, because it's going to be clear if you're in there for the wrong reasons. If you're like, oh, I just want the title, or oh, I want to tell people what to do, or whatever. Or if you come in and you're like, this is exactly why I want to be drum major. Like Dallan was saying, how like that's who you are. You want to help people. Like something that I really enjoy is like servant leadership, doing what you can for the people around you. It's not, I don't know if y'all have seen that like picture where it's like the difference between a boss and a leader. And it's like these people pulling this like heavy thing, and the boss is sitting on top of it pointing, but the leader is at the front of the pack pulling and showing people the way rather than telling people what to do without putting in the effort. Being your most authentic self is how you're going to get the best results. Like no one's gonna follow you if you're like fake. It's just...
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's especially like, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit, but like in drum corps, it's like when you're auditioning, and you go in there and put a charade on, and like, yeah, you're like, I am the best person in the world, and then you're like, they hire you, and you're like, congratulations, you have a contract, and then you get to the middle of summer, and then your true faults start to like show, and then like, your true self starts to show out, and then everyone's like, yeah. So, Kelley, do you want to talk about college?
Yeah, for sure. So every college drum major process is quite different, as it is at a lot of high schools too. The drum major process at University of South Carolina is fairly extensive because we see the drum major as the biggest ambassador for the band and the integrity of the band, the character of the band, and the spirit of the band. So there's a lot of different steps to make sure we have the right person to represent all those areas. So the first round of auditions is we have everybody submits applications with essays about why they would like to be drum major and what they think they could add to the leadership team. Then after that point, everybody does a two-part conducting round. The first part of that conducting round, we have students conduct through the fight song with some members of the band. They also conduct through some different down cheers that we play and just take us through various game situations. And then they also conduct a Bach chorale with the band to give you a chance to show some expressive motions and dynamic contrast and rubato and all these things we talk about in our conducting course here at DMLA. And so after that point, they'll make cuts, and then we will do a mace round because we use a mace, and some college drum majors use equipment, so sometimes that's a part of the audition as well. We have to perform a routine from our pregame show, and then we also get a chance to show off different fundamentals that we know on the mace. And that part tends to scare people away because a lot of folks don't have experience with color guard or anything because they marched in high school, they played an instrument. But I love that part of the process because it's such a microcosm for what you have to do when you're learning about being a drum major anyways, because there's so many things that you aren't really taught about beforehand. You just have to learn through experience. And I feel like spinning the mace is such a great example of that. The people who are successful with that aren't necessarily amazing by audition time, but they've sought out help from other people and they've taken the initiative to go and figure that out for themselves. So there's a mace round, and then there's a round where the drum major candidates will teach marching fundamentals to a group of students, because that's another big part of our job here. We're kind of the visual caption heads almost. We run visual marching rehearsals, and we are kind of the keepers of that knowledge and of why we do the fundamentals that we do. So that's another part of the audition, and then the final part is an interview, and they can choose to make cuts after every round. So it takes about a month to go through that process, so it's pretty extensive. Beau, do you want to talk about what it's like at LSU? Is it pretty similar to that?
Yeah, it's similar in a lot of ways. One thing that Kelley, I don't think she mentioned, is that there are 3 drum majors at USFC, right? USFC, I'm sorry. But at LSU, it's just 1 for the whole 325 person band. So the auditions can be very, really intense. Some of the things they do on purpose was first of all, they put our auditions during Dead Week. So for all those high school kids, I don't know if Dead Week is a thing for y'all at your schools, but Dead Week is when our final exams take place. And they do that to see, can you handle the pressure of being drum major at LSU? Because there's lots of different things that we have to take care of. The first round for us is putting an application. That's the first step. The first formal audition round is mace, because pregame at LSU, I'm not going to go into it, but pregame at LSU is a really, really, really big deal. And they want to make sure that you are on top of it. And kind of like what Kelley was saying too, mace isn't something that is traditionally taught anymore. So you kind of have to discover it yourself, watch videos, do a lot of research, get in touch with former drum majors. All of those things are really important. Then as soon as you finish the mace round, you conduct and sing the Star Spangled Banner, which for all those drum majors or high school drum majors out there, if you've never conducted and sang something before, that's a really telling thing. And record yourself too, because you can really see if your hands are following with what your voice is doing. And then there's cuts after the first day. Then the next day, similar to South Carolina, is we do a teaching round where we have 10 minutes to teach a pregame fundamental, because hashtag LSU pregame is a big deal. And we have some time talking about halftime fundamentals. Again, the drum major is what teaches the rest of the section leaders how to teach the rest of the band. So the drum major ultimately has to be very, very confident in all of that. Then there's cuts. And then lastly, and this is the most fun round, is you go in front of the entire Tiger Band and you conduct one of our traditional hymns that we play at the end of games. You do a pre-taught, pre-self-taught, and pre-assigned score study and conducting session. So like for me, I got an arrangement of Godzilla Eats Las Vegas written for marching band. So I had to memorize that score and conduct in front of the Tiger Band. And I had to do sight conducting where they give you the score for like 10 minutes and then they just throw you up there and see what happens. So that was really fun because just being in front of the Tiger Band, it's incredible. And then there's an interview and then they let you know. And it's really, really something insane to go through. But even if you don't get drum major, like I didn't get drum major the first time I auditioned, but just going through that process, and I encourage it for all of you high school kiddos out there that are auditioning for drum major, even if you don't get it, even if you're a freshman and you're like, we only take XYZ, go through the process because it's such a huge learning experience. I know Sarah over at UNC, you probably have something similar. Could you talk about that process with what y'all do?
Yes, for sure. So something interesting about UNC is that we only have senior drum majors. We have 4. And so you can audition before then to get the experience. So that's something I've done as a sophomore going into my junior year. And I really learned a lot. It's a very interesting process. Our interview actually takes place in front of the entire band. So you come up one by one and you're asked the same questions, but everyone that hasn't heard the questions yet, they're in a separate room so that everyone's hearing it for the first time, not hearing anybody's responses. And then they have to reply on the spot in front of the entire band. We also do a conducting portion, but I always thought that was really interesting because not only do you're like on the spot, you're in front of the entire band and you have no idea what the question's going to be right before. And I'm really glad that I had the experience of, like you said, like auditioning before, because going into this coming year auditioning, I'm going to feel so much more prepared.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of with Sarah, that is unique because it also demonstrates your relationship with the band. Like, and I don't know how big UNC's band is, but at least with Tiger Band, it's a pretty big band, and you can tell when someone goes up there to do even the conducting, and they don't know everyone in the band, and there's just a huge disconnect. Like that's why when I auditioned the second time, I felt totally comfortable because that entire fall and spring leading up to it, I made it a purpose, and even when I was drum major, even more so, to get to know everyone in the band. So it makes a big band smaller. So that's actually interesting. I know UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, they do the same thing, and the director leaves the room. So it's literally just the drum major candidate and then the students, and they can say whatever they want because the director isn't in there. So that's pretty insane.
My computer actually just stopped working. It made a very loud sound, and then it just stopped working. So we're gonna pick right back up where we left off, and we're gonna start talking about how the audition process goes for drum corps. Drum corps is it's very weird because it's very fast paced and in a very high school setting. It's very kind of chillax, laid back, because you know that your band director's always got your back. You know, if you fail, your band director's right there. And I know I did a lot of that in high school. My band director was always there to pick up my slack. But in drum corps, it's very if you fail, you're gonna look pretty bad in front of 153 other people. But so first thing that happens is you fly there. You'll fly there on a Friday afternoon. You'll fly there on a Friday afternoon, and then you'll get off the airplane. You'll go to the housing site, and then you'll do check-ins. And then depending, it varies from drum corps to drum corps, but I have personally gotten scores to the show music that we will be conducting. Like 10 minutes before the block starts. I know Beau was just talking about that before. And I know that I like to fly, but some people do like to drive. But if they're close enough. But yeah, so scores. But yeah, so you'll get there. You'll have basically corps wide check-ins. You'll do the whole shebang. This is drum corps. It's fun. And then you'll have an evening block. It only lasts about 2 to 3 hours, and then you'll go to bed. Easy thing. Bing bang boom done. Saturday is where it gets fun. It's the full day, right? It's a very scary day because it's like the full day of drum corps, 12 hours of rehearsal. You'll get a score in the morning depending on drum corps. I've gotten the score in the morning for something that we'll conduct in the afternoon block, and sometimes 10 minutes before. But basically, you'll have an interview process that ranges through the weekend. Sometimes, usually on like a Sunday morning or a Saturday night, you'll have depending on the corps, you'll have time to conduct the drum corps through a chunk of music. And the crazy thing about drum corps is it's like there'll be a staff member behind you, and they'll just be like, we're gonna go from like letter chunk A to letter chunk B. Horn lines playing, obviously, upper brass bopping, low brass on air, and you have to like decipher what this person just said, like in coded manuscript paper, and then like recite that back to the entire drum corps without messing up. And that's one of the biggest things is communication, is talking to the drum corps and like reading your staff members' minds. And that's like honestly one of the biggest audition advices that I could give about going into drum corps is be on top of your stuff. One. Like you've got to make a cheat sheet. If any of y'all know what that is, it's basically just like, okay, measures 1 to 50 is going to be this many counts with this many measures of 4/4, 3/4, 2/4. You got to make that. As soon as you get your score, that's the first thing you do. So yeah. Sorry for the pause. I apologize. Timestamp that. My computer just had a stroke again. So yeah, and then my second biggest advice is be adaptable, and this is easily translatable to any setting, whether you're auditioning for college, high school, drum corps. You got to be adaptable. Problems are going to happen. No plan that you plan in your mind is going to turn out 100% like it's going to be in person. Something will fail. Your doctor beat or your metronome may die. Your hand may start to cramp. Your music may fall over, and the binder may explode. Papers will go everywhere, and then you'll just have to wing it. So just be adaptable. The interview is very difficult because they ask a lot of in-depth questions, and they really grill you on that. And I know, Beau, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So most experience that I had, and a lot of the misconception for high school is that the conducting is the most important part, which is, at least from my end, not true. If anything, it's the interview that's the most important part, because it gives the directors a chance to know who you are as a person. And again, interviews vary from DCI to college to high school, and maybe at your school it's a little bit different. Every school culture is a little bit different, but that's cool. So we want to kind of give you some insider tips on some interview questions and how to ace the interview. The first thing that I like to do, even before going into the interview, is kind of hyping yourself up, because as soon as you walk in the door, you want to make sure you are exuding confidence, even if you don't have any. Like, I know when I was in high school, I was 5'0", long hair, acne. I did not look, quote unquote, like a leader, very much so. But what I did to help me out was I did this thing called the power stance, where before you go into the interview, you think of like the Superman or Wonder Woman, how they're standing like this and they're looking off in the distance, all cool. You literally just stand there and do that for like 2 minutes, and you're probably wondering, but Beau, you look ridiculous. Of course you'll look ridiculous, but only if you believe you look ridiculous. If you believe in yourself that like, I got this, and you internalize that confidence that you're exuding, you walk in and you feel like a different person. You feel like you own the room. And that's kind of the biggest thing, is owning the room. I want to kick it over to Kelley because she's the queen at owning the room. What are some interview questions that you might have had when you've gone through your processes that you were going to share with your kids when you're a band director?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just got done preparing for interviews for jobs as a band director, and there are a lot of different questions you can expect to be asked, and there are some that you get asked and you're just like, why, how is this here? But the cool thing is that there's a lot of things in common between just general job interview questions, and you can just tie those and make them specific to marching band, essentially. So the first thing they're going to ask you in any interview is to probably talk about yourself, to introduce yourself and say why you want the position. If you're going into maybe an interview your high school band, you might not need to go in depth as much about who you are as a person or what your background is. But if you're auditioning in a drum corps, you're auditioning in a college marching band, you want to talk a little bit more about your background experience. and you want to make this brief, but you want to make sure you cover all the important relevant things. So it might not matter that you worked at Zaxby's or Cane's or something, but it matters that you have, like, you want this position because you helped grow your section and you want to do the same thing for the band, or you got to find your why. And that does take some soul searching. But my why, and many of the whys of leaders I look up to, tie back into servant leadership, which is a lot of what Sarah was talking about earlier. Is I want to be drum major because I want to make the band better, and that can be said in a bunch of different ways, but that is something that as a director I'm always looking for, and even as a peer. If your why isn't about helping other people be the best version of themselves, you might want to do a little soul searching as to why that is, and if this position is the best way for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So that's like the number one thing you are certain that they will ask you about your why and reasons. You want to do some thinking about that. Sarah, do you want to talk about some other interview questions you've experienced in your time?
Sure. So, of course, there's like that main one you said, like, why do you want to be drum major? And I think it's really important going in that you know why. So that's another thing, is it's a good idea to like look up like some of these like basic interview questions and really like take some time to do some soul searching, like you said, and figure out who you are as a person and what you believe in, so you don't flounder on these questions. So the first one was the, like, why do you want to do this? You pretty much already covered that. One of my favorite, it was like, name a strength and a weakness. So something that I like to do, well, everyone has their own strength, so like name what you're good at, but not in a way that you're like talking down about it, or like you're above it. It's like, this is what I'm good at, this is why, like I'm good at teaching because I really care about that the members have good technique, and I listen to what they say and really see what they're struggling with, and I want to help them fix their marching. And I have a good idea for detail, something along those lines. Or for a weakness, I don't like to necessarily say a weakness. I say something I'm working on, something that I am actively trying to get better at, and then I say how I'm doing that. Like, I'm not the, let's say, best conductor, but I'm working with DMLA instructors, and they're helping me improve my skills. And them seeing, like, what you're about, how you're getting there, and how you're trying to improve is so important.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned, the strength versus weakness. That's something that we ask, and a lot of interviewers usually straight up say a weakness, but a lot of the time you can turn that weakness into a strength. So that's really, really awesome. Something that I love to do in interviews is, a lot of the time people can talk the talk, but they can't necessarily show that they can walk the walk. So a lot of the times I like to do hypothetical questions. For example, one of my favorite interview questions is, tell me a time that you solved a conflict between two friends. Because it'll ask you, like, okay, what type of leader am I in this situation? How can I act with my peers? Let's have the background story. And it doesn't have to be super specific, but, those types of things are things you should be thinking about. And when you go into your interview, I can't stress this enough. Experience precedes theory. You can talk about all the things and do all the things, but it's different from doing the things. So, like, for example, if a interview question is asked and they ask you, okay, tell me a quality of leadership that you think you excel at, kind of like what Sarah was mentioning. You can say, I really excel at teaching, and here's some things that I've been doing already to improve my teaching. Because, again, wrapping it back to the very beginning, you're going out of your way to improve yourself for others without being prompted by a director. That's the biggest thing. And if you talk about, and it's not showing off, like, I know when I do interviews, at first I was like, oh, well, I feel like I'm just showing off and like I'm not being humble. You can say that you're a humble person, but you also have to give yourself some self-worth. Because think about it, if you're up on the podium and you always just talk yourself down, other people might not view you as a strong leader for others. But if you build yourself up, you can say, I build myself up so I can build you up even more. You know what I'm talking about? So that's a big thing. But at the end of the day, you know, find things you can do now. And it doesn't even have to be at school. You can talk about how, like, oh, I taught my little sister how to ride a bike. I taught and she learned it really quick. Or, oh, in sectionals, I arranged a saxophone quartet and I conducted it with the group. Like, you can go out of your way and do these things, and you don't have to be asked by a director. And as a director myself, if I had a kid come up and say, yeah, I wrote this arrangement and we worked on it because we wanted to do it for fun and we wanted to improve on this as a section, you know, that's like, it blows your mind a little bit. And the one last thing I have before I kick it over to KP is have an idea that you want to do to improve your band. Because I can guarantee you an interview question will be asked is, what can you do to improve the band? Or what are you going to be bringing as a leader to the band? And come up with a specific idea. You know, like I was a piccolo section leader at LSU, and when I did my piccolo interviews, I talked about specific things in the section that I wanted to fix. So while you're going into your drum major interviews and when you're thinking and when you're writing down ideas and answers that you might have, you need to think, okay, what are some things that I experienced in the band this past year? It could be culture, it could be marching, it could be anything. But what are some things that happened in the band this past year? And then tell yourself, okay, that is the problem. What is the solution? And then it's your job as the incoming leader to come up with that solution. Because when you get picked, they're going to look to you for the solution. So have your solutions now. Go into the interview with those solutions. That's huge. That's huge. Kelley.
I love everything that you were saying, Beau. And I just want to add to what you were saying about tying your theories back to a specific experience you had or a story. Where you can really stand out in an interview for a drum major is if you can tie back your experience to something that maybe happened outside of marching band. When I was going through my college drum major audition process, I tied a lot of what I learned in high school, being a collegiate drum major and all that, to actually scuba diving and some other experiences I had that weren't necessarily related to band. I talked about how my experience making music with toddlers prepared me to make music with 300 to 350 to 400 musicians in front of me, because there are actually a lot of things that are similar between working with preschoolers and working with college students. You might not think that's true, but it is. And I even talked about that experience in my interview to be a high school band director. So if you can tie a band interview to something non-band related or some other experience you had, that's really going to make you stand out, because a lot of people who come to collegiate drum major auditions or to DCI auditions, they might be like music majors or music ed majors, and sometimes you get a lot of the same crops of people. But the way I stood out, even as a music major, as someone who can relate to people who have different backgrounds, is I focus on the parts of my background that weren't necessarily quite as common. And I think there's some other considerations we have to think about when we are going through DCI interviews, because with a high school or a college band, you might know a lot about the traditions of the bands and about the culture of the band and such. So you might have some ability to prepare answers for questions like what specific things you want to change about the band if you're to be selected as drum major. But for DCI, you have to start asking some more questions sooner. You have to really understand what kind of situation you're walking into, especially if it's a corps that you haven't marched at before, if you're auditioning for multiple corps in the same year. And I know Dallan has some experience with that. So Dallan, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I guess back to drum corps topic. Culture is a very weird thing, kind of like picking from what Kelley Powell. By the way, Beau said KP earlier. Her name's Kelley Powell. That is her new nickname for the rest of eternity. Anyways, but yeah, drum corps. So culture is a very weird thing, because it's like auditioning from drum corps to drum corps is just like literally going from America to Britain, or Britain to Afghanistan, or Afghanistan to China. It's literally, it's like the culture's like, it's literally like I say that as a comparison, but I'm quite serious. Like, it's literally that. So my biggest tip for whether it be auditioning for high school, college, drum corps, and I even know that certain colleges, not even certain, all colleges and colleges and high schools, like there will be in like different sections that have different cultures. Like some things that the saxophones might joke about, you might not want to joke about that with the tubas. Like like, or just like some like weird funny things that they say, you know. So it's like learning how to like read the room, like in air quotes, read the room. So like when you first like go into a different drum corps or a different high school or a different college band or section or trying to audition, I would say to like just like take in like what the jokes people are kind of making. This isn't like advice that I've honestly ever been told, and I've had to like learn this the hard way, I guess. But like listen to the jokes, like see like what like how people interact with each other. Is the vibe like, are we really hardworking all the time, or are we more laid back and we like to work hard? So I know that when I auditioned, like when I marched in Cascades in 2019, but then I'm auditioning at BK, or I'm a drum major at BK in 2021. It's like the difference is like at BK they're just like, all right, I guess we can go get some water. We'll go get some water. But at Cascades it was very like, we're gonna go get water now, run. And neither of those is wrong. It's just all about, you know, who your staff is. So we're all now. Let's get some advice going around. What's one piece of advice that we all wish that we would have been told, or something that you think is really good for anyone to hear. So I guess I'll start with Kelley Powell, KP, if you will.
So we've gone through a lot of things to think about in terms of auditions, and I know auditions can be a really stressful and scary time because you've probably waited for some time to get to this part of your life, and there's anticipation building up, and there, you know, if you're doing DCI, there's money involved to do these auditions, and there's a lot of things to think about. But it's always important to remember what exactly is under your control when you're walking into the audition. So you can control what you're wearing that day. You can control what you do when you wake up in the morning. You can control standing in your power pose for a little while. You can control how much preparation you do, mock interviews with friends or with other people who've gone through the audition process. There's a lot you can control, and then you go and do your thing during the day. You can't control how other people do. You can't control how the directors are feeling that day. You can't control like what's for lunch that day. You know, you can't control all these other things. So focus on what you can control and just make some really great things out of what you can control. And then whatever happens, there's always lots of things that people consider, that directors and staff members consider when they're making these decisions. And I think it's fair to say that for all these staff members, they're just trying to do the best thing that they can do for their band. And so if you focus on what you can control and what you can do better, what you can learn from the audition experience itself, I think that's really important. I remember Sarah was talking about how she's been going through the audition process for the UNC drum major position, even though she's not like eligible for it yet, because she just wants to get that experience. So Sarah, do you want to talk about maybe one piece of advice you have from you doing the UNC process that you're going to take to your audition process this year?
Yes. So for me, I know that a lot of people like get nerves, and I do as well. And I think it's just finding a way for you to, I don't want to say deal with it, but like more so control it and like have power over it, because it's not like, it's your body. You can, like Kelley was saying, you can control some things, and one of the things you can control is your reaction and like how you're feeling, basically. Like you can make that decision to find another way to like get rid of those nerves, or rather soothe them. I don't know if what I'm saying makes 100% sense, but like, so like I have not tics, but like little things that like I like to have some type of movement, and that looks like nervous, even though for me it's comfortable. So something I've developed is I will tap my toe in my shoe where no one can see it. Or if I get super nervous, like Kelley said, you can control what you wear. I always lay out what I'm gonna wear before an audition the night before. That way it's one less thing to deal with, and I can focus more on the audition or just like getting to bed and knowing I'll have more time in the morning. I think it's important to like spend some time with yourself, know you. I've said that a lot, I think, but ultimately, like, you are like the product you're putting across, and how you present yourself, whether that be like your attitude, your reaction, like how Beau was standing, how you stand, your power stance. It's all gonna reflect. Everyone's gonna see that and feel that. And if you can do something for you, self-care wise, and making yourself feel better, you're gonna be able to be calmer and put those good vibes out there for everybody else. So speaking of Beau, what audition advice do you have?
Yeah, I've done plenty of interviews, both on both sides of the desk. And I can tell you that from a director perspective, the most comforting thing that I can tell all of you who are going to be interviewing is that none of the directors want to see you fail. A lot of the times we go in and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to screw up. Oh my God, they're waiting to see me mess up. They're waiting to have me say the wrong answer. No. They want to see you succeed. And that's the most important thing. Now, as far as what you can do going into it, and we've kind of echoed this throughout, just be yourself. The directors don't want to see the best Dallan impersonator. They don't want to see the best Sarah impersonator. They want to see the best of you. What can you do? Because at the end of the day, you and your peers are what make up the band program, not just copycats of other people. So be the best you that you can be, and everything will work out just as it intends to. Dallan, you have any quick final thoughts?
Yes. Life goes on. That's my biggest tip. Life goes on. Something bad's gonna happen. Your worst nightmare will come true. The best thing that you could ever wish for will come true. But the only thing that you got to remember is that life happens. Life goes on. Take the good with the bad, and just you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing, because at the end of the day, everything's gonna be okay.
Just gotta keep being extraordinary, right, Dallan?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sarah, Dallan, Beau, I feel like I learned so much from y'all tonight. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences and being open about that. If you're listening on YouTube or anything, thank you so much for watching and listening to us talk about our different experiences. And we hope that you gain something from this that you're going to take to your next audition or interview. Make sure you check out DMLAtraining.com for more resources about everything relating to being a drum major or student leader or conductor. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks so much for watching again. Have a good time. Have a good night.